Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so Jake Fisher is a gentleman who just reported that James Harden has not enjoyed living in Brooklyn, does not appreciate Kyrie Irving's part-time status, um, and will test free agency even if it does lead him, in fact, back to Brooklyn. He's going to test free agency. I said this. I said this. I don't know when I said this. It had to be about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, but I said this. I know KD and Kyrie have a certain relationship, but I'm not sure that James Harden has that same relationship with the same relationship. I don't know that. When I think about James Harden, what I know about James Harden is his roots are here, LA. His roots are in Houston because he played there for so long and developed there for about 8, 9 years. Brooklyn was like, if we can get there and win the championship, for sure. But if I'm not home like Kyrie is. I'm not close to home like KD is. He's in DC. His DC roots. Like James Harden's on the other side of the world, as far as I'm concerned. Like he's just trying to uh, establish him as a champion. That's what he's trying to do. And he figured, hey, I can win a championship with KD and Kyrie. So play in Brooklyn, play in Golden State, play wherever. As long as we can get us three to go, and we can get it done. But like just in general, I don't know that he's a New York guy. You know what I mean? Not especially if they're not playing for a championship. So at this point, I don't blame him. You sitting up there, KD's down, Kyrie's only playing half the time. You're asked to hold down the fort, and you're starting to regress. You know what I mean? And you see your boy, Russell Westbrook in LA playing for the Lakers. You know that should be you. Between me and y'all, James Harden know that should be him. He knows he's a better fit for this team than Russell Westbrook is. Now, obviously, nobody's trading Russell Westbrook for James Harden, but like those are two LA boys. James Harden wants to be here too. You can't tell me he don't. If you from LA, you want to play for the Lakers. Unless you hated the Lakers, for which you probably want to play for the Clippers. But the point is, you want to play home. And he ain't had that opportunities. I think about a guy like DeMar DeRozan. He too probably thinking the same thing. He look at Russell Westbrook. No, that should be me. That should be me. And if it were me, we'd be better. So, that's just my point of view. It don't have to be their thoughts, but I'm willing to bet a whole lot it is. Especially when they look at some of the struggles of the Lakers and they look at what's going on in their own situation. It's like, man, that wouldn't be like that if I were there. Et cetera, et cetera. Now to say they want to play with LeBron James, a whole nother conversation. Whole nother conversation. But what I'm saying is LA, just LA. They want to be home, man. A guy like James Harden probably want to be home just like everybody else. Like Paul George, just like Kawhi Leonard, just like Russell Westbrook. These guys want to be home, man. Ain't nothing like LA. Believe me, trust me, I'm from it. If you are somewhere where you're not winning, you want to be home. So that's what I know. Now, do I think he's going to leave Brooklyn? I don't. I'll say this. I think Daryl Morey's holding out for the hope that he can acquire. So if he does leave Brooklyn, I'm guessing he'll probably end up in Philly. My thing is, I don't know that Philly's at much better of a situation for him in terms of his living situation. If he's tired of living in Brooklyn, I don't think he's going to love living in Philly. Um, you know, same thing, basically, same weather, what have you. Playing with Joel Embiid right now is a good thing. I would want to play with Joel if I'm him. I can win with Joel. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a good chance he's gonna look at his options, but I still think like the KD factor. I don't know that he's just gonna leave KD. I think that after they'd have a conversation or two, depending on how this Kyrie thing plays out, maybe they look to trade Kyrie. I think that would make him feel a bit better about having the requisite amount of cap space on the floor represented in a player rather than having home games where that is just not the case. It's the same thing I say about Ben Simmons not being on the floor for Philadelphia and them not trading to get that same for Joel Embiid. It's the same exact thing. I mean, you sitting around, you saying, okay, we just got cap space in oblivion right now, because it's not represented. So, that's a real thing. If they could find a way to make it so that cap space is represented on the floor, he'll feel like he has a fuller team and feel a lot better about being in Brooklyn. That's just common sense. Now, I hope that all in all, they can have some solution for his sake to Kyrie's issue, so that Kyrie can play all these games. As to which he will have his running mate down there, whether KD's down there or not, and they can still win some of these same games. Because Kyrie and James Harden should be able to beat most teams in the Eastern Conference. One would think. So there's a lot that goes into that, of course, but at the same time, you still expect them to win those games. So, all in all, I think that's what it is. It's incumbent upon the Brooklyn Nets to heed the message that I just said to you guys, that that Fisher gave us, and react to it by making moves that'll help him feel better. Because at the end of the day, this is a Hall of Famer, somebody who you want on your team going forward, top 75 player. You want him to feel good about being in Brooklyn. Because if he don't feel good about being in Brooklyn, you're still in competition with the Knicks, who are a team that's getting better. Their front office is getting stronger. They remind me of where the Lakers and the Clippers were before they got their stars respectively. The Knicks are almost there, so you don't want to put yourself in a position to have James Harden say, well, I might as well just go down to Madison Square, because that's also an option. I'm sure the Knicks will create space for that. So, the Nets have to do work. You can't get to a point where you just, okay, we got our stars, so we good. No, you got to keep working at it, especially if this Kyrie situation is as it is. I personally would trade Kyrie. I would do that. I would do that unless KD just demanded me not. And if KD demands me not, I would have to weigh what that means for James Harden and maybe trade him since he's unhappy. You don't want James Harden to test free agency at all. So what you need if you're the Brooklyn Nets, Sean Marks and those guys, I believe Sean Marks still ahead of this team. I believe so. He's going to have to sit those three down and sort this crap out before the trade deadline. Because if they can't come to a conclusion that they're moving forward in unison, then he has to figure out who he would rather have, KD and Kyrie, half-mass, or James Harden, or you know what I mean? It could become a situation where he has to choose. And I don't think that's the easiest decision in the world. Because if you let go of Kyrie, there's no guarantee that KD's going to be very pleased. You let go of James Harden, there's no guarantee those two are going to win together without you getting something really good in replacement. So it's just a lot going on. Like if you're bringing in Ben Simmons, is that going to make KD and Kyrie happier? You still got to have Kyrie down there. You know what I mean? You still have to take account that he's only going to play on the road games. So it's like, what do you do? What do you do? You have to sit down with KD and say, okay, we have to choose. You're the one that we are not letting go of. So you have to choose. Do you want half of KD? Half of Kyrie or half of James Harden? If that meeting between those three doesn't end with them saying, okay, we're going together in unison, no need to make no trade. Because you can't go into this trade deadline not knowing where they stand and then having these trade options, on the table, and not knowing if it's wise to pull the trigger or to not. It's a lot of uncertainty there. So if I'm James Harden, Kyrie, and KD, they need to have a meeting. It's time to have a sit-down meeting about where we're headed over the next 6 to 18 months. From this year to next year, where do you guys see this Brooklyn thing going? And then when you have that meeting or series of meetings, it may take more than one meeting, you get those guys on the same page, right? And then you can assess what you really have. I personally think if they just don't do nothing, they're still the favorites to win the Eastern Conference. I really don't think. You look at the Miami Heat as well as they're playing. You look at some of these other teams. Bulls are having such injury issues right now. They just really gotten a bad break over the last couple of weeks. If all those teams are healthy, the Brooklyn Nets still have issues. But I ultimately think they're going to win a 7-game series against just about every team they face. So you can still win, is what I'm saying. You still believe you can win. The question is, do you believe, the players, that this is what you want to be a part of going forward? So that's where I come from in regards to this conversation. James Harden, like I said, there's not going to be a shortage of trade options. You know what I mean? They're going to get good returns for everybody. All three of them would obviously provide you a great deal of trade equity. But the Brooklyn Nets are a team that haven't won. And unlike the Lakers with a bunch of championships behind them and some of these other teams, Golden State with a bunch of championships, you really don't want to mess up this trio. Because if you mess it up, it's no guarantee that the other guys are going to come play with you. There's no guarantee that you're going to just get talent just because you have the Brooklyn locale. You're still in competition with the Knicks. So that's a real thing. And we'll see where they go from here, man. Right now, they're in a great spot. and I wouldn't necessarily make just a move, just a reactionary move to this news. But I will say this: if I'm the GM, I don't think I'm letting James Harden test free agency. I don't think I am. I don't think so. Now I have to take a look at the lay of the land. I gotta know what his options are before I'm married to that thought, and I don't know what those options are. Who's gonna have cap space next year? Who's gonna create? Who could potentially create cap space next year? Would they be willing to take James Harden? All these different things I want to have in my head before allowing him to test free agency, because if we know the market ain't great for James Harden for what he would want, and if he could only go to like teams that he would never want to go to, then there's no need to have such intensity about making sure he doesn't make it to free agency. But if he has a fleet of suitors and everybody got cap space, and he's gonna be going to like 7 different teams to get go on little date meetings and all that to see who and what. If it's one of those situations, they need to make sure that they trade him before it ever gets to that. That the Brooklyn Nets as an organization can't afford to let that even happen. So that's my opinion, man. That's honestly how I assess that whole thing. Yep. My name is BDF44. I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.